Alright, this is it, the grand finale of the Batman Arkham series. There are no more games after this one. Arkham Knight's development started back in 2011, right after Arkham Cities' development finished, and it's kind of interesting when you think about that, because they just started immediately after. They really knew that they were going to get a third game, and Arkham Origins was released to tide fans over while Arkham Knight was being developed. And we already know my thoughts of Arkham Origins, so we're not covering any new ground on those thoughts. But Arkham Knight released back in 2015, meaning that this year is actually its 10th anniversary. Mother of God. This game is 10 years old. I still remember the agony I had to go through back in 2015 because I wasn't anywhere near a PS4 and I wasn't even going to try to get the PC version at the time. So yeah, it was kind of hard to avoid spoilers for a little bit, though again, there's not really much to spoil with this game. But I remember when I finally got my hands on a PS4 and a copy of the game, I played nothing else for months and months on end. I truly did love it back at the time, but it has been 10 years, so I wonder if my thoughts of Arkham Knight has changed over time, or maybe I think it's better than what it is. So, let's get started with an in-depth review of Batman Arkham Knight. Like usual, spoilers will be abundant for this review, so skip to this point in the video if you don't want the story ruined for you.
This is how it happened. This is how the Batman died.
Wow, thanks Gordon.
It's Halloween in Gotham City. 9 months after the Joker's death in Arkham City, it seems like there's peace in Gotham as crime actually fell in the city until a random chemical attack happens in a diner that was done by Scarecrow. Turns out Scarecrow survived his encounter with Killer Croc and was just biding his time until now. Actually, there was a lot of hints towards this in Arkham City, mainly with various messages that you can find with the cryptographic sequencer and this random boat in the industrial district. Now Scarecrow is back and he threatens to release his new toxin throughout Gotham and gives all the citizens 24 hours to evacuate the city, leaving nothing but emergency service workers, thugs, and the occasional supervillain. But Batman makes it to the scene and now it's up to him to save the city once again. It first starts with Batman searching Bleak Island to find where Scarecrow is hiding. After arresting Poison Ivy, saving a cop, breaking a random soldier's arm, and getting a brand new suit, not in that order, Batman eventually traces Scarecrow's location to Ace Chemicals. Turns out Scarecrow was planning on turning the chemical plant into a giant toxin bomb that would disperse his new toxin all over the eastern coast, meaning that of course Batman has to stop this by making his way to the central mixing chamber while saving the workers who are being held hostage. However, as Batman makes his way through the chemical plant, he is first confronted by the titular Arkham Knight, the leader of a massive militia who seems to have a big grudge towards Batman, who also supposedly knows everything about him. Batman fights his way through the militia soldiers and unmanned drones, eventually getting to Scarecrow, and just when you think Batman is about to take out Scarecrow and end the game, the Arkham Knight kidnaps Oracle, and Scarecrow uses the confusion to make his escape. However, that still leaves the issue of the bomb, and Batman decides to sacrifice himself to reduce the blast radius, and as a result, he's exposed to Scarecrow's toxin, which causes God damn it. Alright, turns out that Batman wasn't entirely cured of Joker's blood from Arkham City, and now he's dealing with a new infection known as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, along with 4 other people, but I'll get into what happens to them later. So yes, once again, Joker is an entity in the Arkham series, but I know this is going to come off as hypocritical as someone who complained about Joker's role in Arkham Origins, but I actually kind of like Joker's role in this game. He's just a hallucination, and one that never leaves Batman alone. Yes, he does kind of steal the show at the end of the game, but I'll get into that later. However, he doesn't become the main threat of this game. Scarecrow, the Arkham Knight, and all the others are still the biggest threats, and unlike Black Mask and Arkham Origins, they don't disappear once Joker comes into play, so I gotta give him points there. Anyway, once Batman escapes from the chemical plant, he makes it its top mission to save Barbara from Scarecrow, leading him to track down the Arkham Knight through an underground tunnel, and then eventually tracking the militia to Stag's airships, thanks to a rather satisfying interrogation conversation with the Penguin, especially after watching a show. Batman fights his way through the airships to save both Simon, Stagg, and Barbara, but it turns out that Scarecrow and Stagg have been working on a project known as the Cloudburst, which turns out to be a dispersal device that allows Scarecrow's toxin to basically envelop the city in fear toxin within seconds. Of course, Batman attempts to stop Scarecrow, but after a rather freaky Joker sequence, Scarecrow escapes and actually causes Barbara to commit suicide right in front of Batman. However, with the looming threat of the Cloudburst still active, Batman recruits Poison Ivy to help counter the toxin with the help of this giant tree in Miagani Island. However, after doing some work on Founders Island to allow the Batwing to track the Cloudburst in the first place, it turns out that Harley Quinn decided to raid the movie studios where the other Joker infected are being held, and Batman goes to help Robin fight off Quinn and her thugs. It's also where we learn that there is likely no cure for Batman's disease, as Henry Adams, the one who's been infected the longest, turns out to be the one to orchestrate this whole thing as a means to kill the other Jokers and purify the gene pool. However, Henry kills himself as he sees that Batman will be the better candidate for Joker's blood. Now, this is a bit of a sidetrack, but I actually really love this sequence. No, I don't really care about Harley, but I love seeing the different aspects of Joker being manifested in all the infected. Henry Adams has Joker's cunning, Christina Bell has that sort of obsession with Batman, Albert King has the brutality, and Johnny Charisma has the showmanship. Plus, I still have that song Joker sings in the sequence stuck in my head to this day. Also, I really just love the Jason Todd hallucinations throughout this sequence. Troy Baker, I love this guy as Jason. I'm just gonna say that now. He captures those traumatic aspects in Jason's life in both his interview tapes and these sequences, and I still cringe at the agonizing scream in the second hallucination.
No, no, please, please, no, no!
Anyway, back to the main story. After finishing off Harley, Batman makes his way back to the Botanical Gardens to check on Ivy, but at this moment, Scarecrow sets off the Cloudburst, and it's once again up to Batman to destroy it. After asking Stagg for a way to disable it, and then eventually destroying the Arkham Knight's tank, the fear toxin is neutralized, but it ends up killing Poison Ivy. Luckily, there's no way Rocksteady would retcon this in a future game. That would be stupid. After the fear toxin is dissipated, the GCPD gets a random message from a SWAT radio, which turns out to be Gordon. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. Gordon is pissed at Batman and goes to find Barbara on his own. Looks like it didn't work out that well, as Gordon is eventually captured by the militia anyway. Batman makes his way through the Arkham Knight's base and eventually has a final confrontation with the Arkham Knight, who turns out to be Jason Todd. Yeah, it's not that shocking. The second you started talking, everyone knew who it was, and if you didn't get it by that point, the movie studio sequence was the final nail in the coffin for most people. However, as I mentioned, Jason is one of the best characters in this game, but I really do wish we got more of him. But I like what we have here anyway. After the final battle with Jason, Gordon and Batman go to take on Scarecrow, but it turns out that it was all a setup, and Gordon ends up betraying Batman, while also revealing that Barbara is still alive. Batman survives the shot made by Gordon and ends up saving Barbara and takes her back to the GCPD, which eventually ends up getting raided by the militia, but Batman quickly puts a stop to that. However, Scarecrow goes to the movie studios and kidnaps Robin, and for those keeping count, that's the third damn person to be kidnapped so far in this game. Now, Scarecrow demands that Batman surrenders and he'll let Robin and Jim live. Batman complies to this and is driven to the ruins of Arkham Asylum, where Scarecrow forces Gordon to remove Batman's cowl on camera, with the shocking revelation that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Oh, wait, that was supposed to be for the characters in the game, not us, my bad. Anyway, to show the world that Batman is just a man, Scarecrow injects Batman with the fear toxin, and this actually leads to one of the most terrifying sequences in the Arkham series. This sequence basically starts off as a what-if scenario, with Joker actually managing to take over Batman's mind and shows just how unstoppable he'd be, but it ends with Batman overcoming the infection and hiding Joker away in the darkest parts of Batman's mind, putting Joker to rest once and for all, until Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. And I have to say, I love this sequence. Everything about this ending is just beautiful. How everyone reacts to Batman unmasked, how while the player is seeing Joker killing everyone, including Penguin, Riddler, and Two-Face, everyone else is just seeing Batman. The first-person sequence where Batman is taunting Joker with his real fear of being forgotten, ending with Batman beating the hell out of Joker and locking him up, but first, he has to recite his iconic "I am vengeance" line.
I am vengeance. I am the Knight. I am Batman.
Anyway, after Batman overcomes the effects of the fear toxin, and with the help of Jason, Batman injects Scarecrow with some toxin, and takes him out and puts him in GCPD, ending Scarecrow's plan. And now that the city's safe, assuming you finished all the side quests, Batman activates the Nightfall Protocol, where Bruce blows up the bat signal at GCPD and Wayne Manor, supposedly killing both him and Alfred. After a bit of time, Gordon gives him a bit of a monologue about the legend of Batman and what happened to his legacy, but we watch as a child and his parents walk into a back alley only to be held at gunpoint, similar to Bruce, but things go a little bit differently. The thugs are distracted by a caped figure on a distant rooftop, which turns into a demon and attacks the thugs.
What the fuck?
Alright, that was a beefy one, and well, as the finale of the Arkham series, I have to say it did okay. Yeah, the identity of the Arkham Knight was pretty obvious, but I still enjoyed him all the same, especially with how he was incorporated into how the game plays. Scarecrow as a villain was intimidating and all, but it was kind of annoying that his whole thing was, no, don't kill him, I want to scare him first. And Joker being a major threat again was annoying because they seriously couldn't go one Arkham game without him being a villain. But as I mentioned, it's not as egregious as Arkham Origins because all he is a hallucination that just doesn't go away, so the real threats are still there. Speaking of, I kind of was hoping that this was going to be a big villain team-up kind of story. That was kind of what I got from the trailers, but no, it's just Scarecrow and the Arkham Knight and Joker. But again, it isn't that bad as the villains are still there, at least in side quests, and unlike Arkham Origins, the side quests are actually pretty interesting for the most part, but I'll get into those later, because I probably just made some people's eyebrows raise. Overall, I think the story is really good. It's not the best story in the Arkham series, but I don't really have any major problems with it. I enjoyed it, and I have to say the performances were really good this time around. I mentioned Kevin Conroy probably every Arkham video, but I have to say this is probably his best interpretation. I already mentioned Troy Baker, but I also love John Noble as Scarecrow. He really just kind of captures the new fear factor that Scarecrow has. The only two voices I didn't really enjoy were Tara Strong's Harley Quinn, but that's just because he's more pitchy this time around. And I can't believe I'm saying this, Jonathan Banks as Gordon. I love him in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, but he really just doesn't do anything to convey emotion for Gordon.
You bastard!
Now, with the story out of the way, let's see how Rocksteady improved on the gameplay, and I'm just gonna say now, it was a lot. Alright, let's start in the familiar territory with Batman's on-foot gameplay. Just like the previous games, there are essentially two modes for Batman. Free-flow combat, where Batman can beat the ever-living crap out of thugs, and the Predator sections, where Batman must use his stealth to take out enemies with guns. In terms of what's changed, well, a lot actually. Starting with free flow combat, this is the smoothest Batman has ever felt in the series. Batman will practically zoom across the screen to punch a thug that's still standing, but Batman can also punch a thug that's still on the ground. Batman can also pick up melee weapons and use them against thugs, and Arkham Knight introduces the environmental takedowns, where Batman can use his environment to take down a thug instantly, whether it's dropping a light on a thug, using the Batmobile cannon on them, or shoving their face into an electrical generator. Yeah, I don't think that guy's alive. There are also times where Batman will end up teaming up with other characters, mainly Nightwing, Catwoman, and Robin, and everything is pretty much the same, but you can switch between the two with a push of a button. And after this meter fills, you can use a dual team takedown that switches you over to whoever you aren't playing as once the animation is complete. Overall, I think the combat is at its best in this game. Almost everything was improved with Arkham City. Batman practically has every ability he had in the previous games, with a few exceptions, mind you, and certain gadgets had their properties changed to make things easier. For example, the quickfire explosive gel is now a projectile instead of Batman doing this weird flip thing and then dropping some on the ground. But as usual, as Batman improves, so do the enemies, and there were a lot of improvements. I guess the Arkham Knight really does know a lot about Batman, because not only do thugs try to punch Batman, use weapons of some sort, but now they'll actually try to charge at Batman, but all you have to do is use a quickfire batarang to get an instant takedown. However, on top of regular thugs, we have thugs with guns, shields, stun batons, combat expert, and brutes. Brutes, by the way, are essentially the same as armored enemies back in Arkham City and Arkham Origins, where you have to use the beatdown to take them out. However, Arkham Knight adds medics who can revive unconscious enemies and give other thugs an electrical field. Brutes can also wield other weapons in combat, such as blades, shields, and stun batons, meaning that on top of having to perform the beatdown, you have to make sure you counter their respective weapon before you can beat them down. If the brute has a shield, you have to use the air attack. Stun fist, they have to use remote electrical charge to disable them, and blades, you have to blade dodge. Arkham Knight really assumes you've played the previous games before, because when you're fighting the militia, they throw almost everything at you at once. However, there is a sense of joy and satisfaction I get when I get through a combat challenge that has ninjas, medics, brutes using weapons, and just a bunch of other threats at once, especially if I manage to do it flawlessly. Yeah, there are times where I got overwhelmed and end up dying, but most of the time, it's because I just got plain reckless. I just jumped right into the arena assuming I could do it all. I didn't take the time to see how many medics were around, or if there was something I could sabotage with the disruptor to take a particular threat out of the equation. I may be Batman, but I'm not immortal, so I need to take things slow and study what kind of threats I'm facing, and when I see the final hit in slow motion, oh yeah, there's a sense of satisfaction there. Also, I've never really brought this up, but I've always loved the sound that plays when you take out a thug, but in this game, it's my favorite. The sounds of bones breaking really just brings a grin to my face because I know I serve some justice to a litter bug.
Huh. Maybe Joker's corrupting my mind too.
Now on to stealth, and here not much has changed in terms of how things work. Yep, combat is discouraged and it's up to you to figure out how to take down enemies quickly and quietly. However, there are a few improvements. For one, ledge, vent, and takedowns from certain vantage points are now silent, meaning that there is less chance of exposing yourself when you use these methods. And second is the introduction of fear takedowns. After Batman gets his new suit, if you get the drop on a group of thugs, you can take them out in quick succession. You only start off with being able to take out 3, but with the right upgrade, you can take out up to 5 enemies. Fear takedowns are really useful to start combat encounters or end predator sections because you really can't mess up with them, unless the enemy you're targeting just happens to be too far away. Also, it can only be used once before you have to use a silent takedown to recharge it if you want to use it again in the same predator section, so keep that in mind. Now, in terms of what the enemies do in stealth sections, they really make sure you adapt to the challenge because throughout stealth sections, the villains will actively warn the thugs about whatever tactics you're using and put a stop to it. Using the breakable walls, the Arkham Knight will tell them to destroy them. Using silent takedowns from behind, they'll tell the thugs to partner up. Using the voice synthesizer, they'll switch channels. It's up to you to vary your methods and adapt to the situation because the game will force you to eventually. And honestly, that's really thrilling. It forces me to think outside the box when it comes to takedowns. Do I want to risk the drone seeing me while I hack it for the codes? Do I want to gather all of the thugs in one area and do a fear takedown? Do I need the use of vantage points even though they mind them? These are the kind of thoughts that run through my head when I enter a stealth section, and I love it. The Predator sections feel their best here. I love Arkham City, I really do. However, unlike Arkham City, I can't just enter a Predator room and assume that I could take down all the enemies with the same 2 methods. I am now forced to try new things. This may discourage players who feel safe using only inverted takedowns and silent takedowns, but it does keep the game from getting stale. I feel as if every time I replay this game, I use different tactics to take down the thugs in the same sections. Yeah, it's annoying when my original plans don't work out, but with how long I've played this game, I always have a backup plan, and I guess that's the Batman experience. In terms of the thugs that are introduced for stealth sections, there are the enemies that can track you in detective mode, enemies that are immune to your detective mode, brutes that can use a Gatling gun, meaning that you'll have to take them out with special means, and as I mentioned, enemies that pilot a drone that shoots you if it spots you. Now, just because the thugs improve doesn't mean that Batman doesn't have the gadgets to use against them. In terms of what Batman starts off with, it's about everything he had at the end of Arkham City, with a couple of exceptions. You get the remote electrical charge gun from the GCPD lockup, and the freeze blast can be picked up from the movie studios at any time. Though the freeze blast is really only used for Riddler stuff, and you can't make ice platforms with it anymore. Now, that doesn't mean Batman doesn't get any new gadgets to play with. Kind of. First, we get the Disruptor, which was in Arkham City, but it had a massive glow up. Not only can it jam enemies as guns, but it can be used again on the same gun and the gun will explode when fired. It can also set traps on weapon crates, shocking anyone who tries to get new weapons, and with the right upgrade, you can sabotage a lot more. You can disrupt tanks, detective mode scanners, mines, pretty much anything at this point. Next, you get the remote hacking device, which is basically this game's version of the cryptographic sequencer, but it does a lot more than just let you hack into security systems to get Riddler trophies. You can hack into generators and blow them up, use it to hack into drones and blind them for a bit, or if you download the codes from the soldier controlling the drone, you can turn it against them. And finally, the only really new gadget you get in this game is the voice synthesizer. You mainly use it to access security systems that can only be accessed through Harley and Stag's voices, but you can also use it to order thugs around into various traps. Really fun to use, and it sucks when the villains rat me out on using it, because then I can't use it anymore in that section. Also, I mentioned this earlier, but a lot of the gadgets that were in the previous games had some minor tweaks to them to make them a little bit better to use. The best one to me is the fact that after a few seconds, you can bump into walls with a remote batarang before you have to throw it again. Overall, Batman himself has basically improved in every way possible from Arkham City. Beating up criminals feels really smooth, and it feels real hard to miss a beat. Stealth is really engaging with the leaders actively warning their thugs about your tactics, and it just feels so much better to play this game. Of course, as I mentioned, it may be a little harder for you if you're not like me and played the hell out of Arkham Asylum and especially City, but to me it still feels manageable. Well, I say that's all of our gadgets, but there is one big one that I haven't mentioned yet. Batman's car. This is the Batmobile's introduction, and god damn it, they wanted to make sure you knew it was in this game. With the push of a button, Batman can summon the Batmobile to his location and speed off towards his next objective. Not only can you use it to speed through the streets of Gotham and chase down thugs and armored vehicles while also committing some very non-lethal hit and runs, trust me, it's non-lethal, but it can also turn into a tank. Yeah, I know what I said. And in that mode, Batman will be forced to solve puzzles with the power winch and pull heavy objects, or use a scanner to follow trails. But the main purpose of battle mode is to fight the plethora of tanks that the militia have on standby. Now, don't worry, they're all unmanned. The tank battles aren't particularly my favorite parts of the game, but I actually do kind of enjoy them. Yeah, they're simple. They shoot you, you dodge it, you shoot them back, with the occasional super move, whether it's a barrage of missile, an EMP, or a drone hack. They're simple and nothing to go crazy over. Yes, you will be forced to use the Batmobile a lot in this game, but It's honestly not as bad as people let it out to be. It's exhilarating driving throughout the city, and launching out of it into a super glide will always be satisfying. My favorite kind of puzzles are the ones that require you to use both the Batmobile and Batman's abilities. A huge example has to go to the Arkham Knight's HQ, as you have to lower the Batmobile onto this drill, but you have to stop these fans by using the remote electrical charge. While I mentioned it's fun to drive through Gotham in the Batmobile, just gliding through the city feels great too. You start with the grapnel boost in this game, and you even get upgrades to make it faster. Gliding just feels so good in this game. I don't really know how to describe it, it just feels smooth. Now that I've talked about exploring Gotham, what is there to do in this city? Well, actually a lot. First, Gotham is much bigger in this game. It's only divided into 3 islands, but they're massive in scale. First is Bleak Island, and it's the simplest island as there's not a lot of threats here, and it's just meant to be the beginning area. This is where the movie studios are, and I actually like going through them. It's a pretty condensed area, but I do like the idea of exploring an abandoned studio, and the areas are all varied in their own ways. Next is Miagani Island, which has massive skyscrapers, especially when you start getting close to Grand Avenue, and it's kind of like the medium area as well. There are some major threats, but it's nothing too crazy. Finally is Founders Island, which is essentially the Arkham Knights' territory as it's filled to the brim with tanks, checkpoints, watchtowers, and bombs. Here you can also access Stag's airship, which has my favorite gimmick for an area in the Arkham series as a whole, where you have to tilt the airship with the remote hacking device to solve puzzles. There's also the Arkham HQ that I already mentioned. Now, when you're not progressing the main story, you're likely going for the many, and I mean many, side quests in this game. Now, to classify them as side quests is kind of confusing, because they're all kind of required in order to get the full ending of this game, and that's a restriction that's never really been a thing in the Arkham series until now. Usually taking down all the other villains didn't really impact the ending, it was just teases towards the future of the Arkham series. Now, yes, it's true that Batman had to take down the likes of Deadshot and Zsasz in Arkham City because they were dangerous, but you, the player, didn't have to if you didn't want to. However, I like this change. Considering how this game ends, it wouldn't really make sense to leave villains roaming around Gotham if Batman would make sure the city is as safe as possible before he enacts a protocol like that. Plus, I mentioned back in my Arkham Origins review that I just didn't feel motivated to do the side quests, but this time around, I actually really wanted to do the side quests because they felt much more fulfilling and interesting than Arkham Origins. Man, I am pretty sure I'm pissing off every Arkham Origins fan right now. Now, I'm pretty sure that motivation came from the fact that you have to do them in order to see the full ending, but I remember my first playthrough and I did most of them before I even got to the end of the game because I simply wanted to. Also, the game does kind of drop subtle hints that you should do the side missions, as there are times where Lucius or Barbara will say that you can drop by whenever you're ready, and Alfred won't hesitate to remind you that there's an unfinished mission. Now, onto the missions themselves. First is the line of duty, as thugs have taken the Station 17 fire crew hostage, and it's up to Batman to find them. Next is the perfect crime, as there are 6 bodies chained up to walls throughout the city, and it's up to Batman to use his detective skills to find the killer, which turns out to be Professor Pig, ending in a rather disturbing fight with him and his Dolatrons. There's Creature of the Night, where Man-Bat is seen flying around the city and Batman must cure him of his disease before he hurts anyone. Also, screw you, Rocksteady, for those jump scares. Next is Gotham on Fire, where Firefly is starting fires at all the fire stations in Gotham, and of course, we have to stop him. We have Gunrunner, where Nightwing and Batman must team up to stop Penguin from smuggling guns around Gotham and Bloodhaven. Next is Heir to the Cowl, as Azrael seeks to replace Batman after he dies, so Batman puts him through a series of tests where he must overcome them without getting hit, which is bullcrap considering you can get hit in the main game, so why is Batman expecting perfection from Azrael? Now we have Two-Faced Bandit, where Two-Face is just robbing banks across Gotham, and we just have to punch him in his faces. Next is Friend in Need, where Lucius is being held hostage by Hush, who is using the fact that he looks like Bruce Wayne to steal his fortune. That's it. Alright. We also have Lamb to the Slaughter, where Jack Ryder is kidnapped by Deacon Blackfire, and we just have to stop Blackfire's cult by punching everyone in the face. There are also a few quests with the militia, where you have to take down the militia checkpoints, watchtowers, and APCs throughout the city, and you also have to defuse these bombs that were planted. Once you finish that, you get a rather anticlimactic boss fight with Deathstroke, especially when compared to Arkham Origins. Oh right, I forgot to mention Deathstroke's in this game. And of course, Riddler is back, and this time he's only taking Catwoman hostage, so you have to endure his challenge rooms to free her. I love the races because they require good reflexes, and the puzzle rooms that use the Batmobile are more examples of using Batman and the Batmobile's abilities to solve a puzzle. Also, of course, there are Riddler trophies and riddles to find throughout Gotham, but thankfully, it's only 243 of them, because I expected like 1,000 of these damn things. Most of them are pretty challenging to get because sometimes you have to use the Batmobile alongside Batman, and some require certain upgrades to get them comfortably, especially the races. I'm just glad I don't have to collect these stupid things anymore.
Riddler, like usual, is the biggest obstacle you have to overcome to activate the Nightfall protocol, but personally, I don't think he's that bad in this game. Yeah, his constant taunting gets annoying after a while, and I'm pretty sure he threatened to have sex with me.
You solved it? Ah, but this is merely check, Detective. Soon I will be mating you. Wait, I meant chess. Chess, you base, gutter-minded savage!
Overall, the side missions are fine. Yeah, some of them are pretty repetitive, especially if you're like me for this review and just marathon through the objectives at once, but I still like a majority of them. Yeah, that even includes the militia quests. They bring a sense of challenge that I kind of enjoy, especially if I decide not to use fear takedowns or the Batmobile to instantly take everyone down. However, the best side quests come out of the Season of Infamy DLC pack. Arkham Knight had a massive season pass where every now and then they would release a new DLC content, which were maps for the challenge mode, new skins for all the playable characters, and the Batmobile, and the Arkham episodes, which I'll get into later. I'll get into what the Arkham episodes are in a minute, but the final DLC was the Season of Infamy, which featured 4 villains that didn't appear in the main game. First is Wonderland, where Mad Hatter has kidnapped cops, and it's up to Batman to save them, but it also has this really trippy combat gauntlet at the end with this cartoonish Batman skin that I wish was an equipable costume. I guess that's what modding's for, I guess. Next is Shadow War, where it seems the League of Assassins are having a bit of a civil war, and it's up to Batman to put a stop to it, but the player is actually given a choice to either destroy the Lazarus Pit and kill Ra's al Ghul, or heal him but cause a war, and that's pretty cool. Personally, I usually let Ra's die because, I mean, he was responsible for all of Arkham City. Next is Beneath the Surface, where a prison called Iron Heights has crashed into Gotham. Batman and Nightwing go to investigate what caused it, and it turns out it was Killer Croc. And finally, my personal favorite, Mr. Freeze with In From the Cold. The militia have captured Nora, and it's up to Batman to save her. Again. However, this time around, it nearly brings a tear to my eye as Nora is unfrozen, and the Freeze decide to spend their last days together in peace. Yeah, the Season of Infamy has the best side quests in the game, and I kinda wish the base game's quests were more like these, but I still enjoy most of the quests in this game. Now back on the topic of DLC with the Arkham episodes. Oh dear lord, there's a lot of them. Alright, let's start the list. Harley Quinn's DLC was a pre-order bonus, and it takes place right before the game's events, as Harley goes to Bloodhaven to free Poison Ivy. Red Hood was the first DLC release, which kind of spoiled the game, by the way. Jason is basically trying to dismantle Black Mask's operation by kicking him out of the window to the sound CinemaSins uses.
How about you go to hell? Say hi to Joker for me.
Batgirl's Matter of the Family is a little interesting and a lot longer, as it takes place before Arkham Asylum, as Joker has taken cops and Gordon hostage, and it's up to Batgirl and Robin to save them. Nightwing's GCPD lockdown takes place after the game's events, where Penguin is trying to break out of GCPD, but Nightwing quickly puts a stop to it. I love this one because of Nightwing's interactions with Penguin.
Hey, boss! We're getting you out!
You are? Where's Nightwing?
Oh, he's right here. We thought you'd want to say hello.
Oh, I do. Ah, sawed off.
Catwoman's Revenge is where Catwoman seeks to get payback on Riddler for holding her hostage in the main game, and I have to say, I hate the final combat section. You have to fight Riddler robots on a floor that slowly becomes electrified with 2 lasers moving around. It took me like 4 attempts to get through this, and it's probably a skill issue on my part, but I still wanted to rant about it for a second. And finally, Robin's Flip of a Coin, where Two-Face is active once again, and Robin must prove himself to take down Two-Face and put him back behind bars. Almost all of the Arkham episodes are less than 10 minutes long, depending on your skill level, which is a little disappointing, but it's overall harmless. If you want to play as all the other playable characters, there is challenge mode where you can play as anyone that's playable in the game. There are some limitations, but you still have the choice. On top of that, challenge mode also adds modes for the Batmobile for both battles and races, and these are pretty fun too. The races are cool because the DLC racetracks are references to different Batman movies like the Nolanverse, the 1989, and the 60s show. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, there are Batmobile skins that are just ripped right out of their respective movies, but you can only use them in races because they don't have a dedicated battle mode. Little questionable on the Batman v Superman Batmobile, but whatever. But in terms of combat and Predator maps, playing as everyone is pretty standard. Catwoman, Robin, and Nightwing play exactly like they did in Arkham City, with a few minor changes. And Batgirl and Azrael are basically just reskins of Batman. Red Hood, I like him. His main thing is that he just straight up kills people, but he kind of plays like a fusion of Robin and Nightwing to me. He's pretty limited, but I still have a good time playing as him. Harley, however, she's the worst to play as. For one, she doesn't have any means of silent takedowns, which I guess is the
point, but our stealth sections are not fun at all. Mayhem mode is pointless, and her constant quips are ear-grating to listen to because she just cycles through the same lines over and over and over again. Harley is fun to play as if you just don't feel like putting effort into it, but she's just there. Honestly, I wish the Arkham series would continue with the other members of the Bat family. I can see this formula working really well for Red Hood, Robin, Nightwing, and Batgirl. A man can dream. And no, I'm not counting Gotham Knights. There's also a crapload of alternate costumes for Batman, Robin, Nightwing, Harley, Red Hood, and Catwoman. Batman has the most, obviously, and the game is rendered in real time, meaning that your costume is reflected in most cutscenes. Now to talk about everyone's favorite type of DLC, console-exclusive content. If you have the PS4 version of Arkham Knight, you can do the Scarecrow Nightmare challenges, which I actually really like, and it's really a bummer that it's PS4 exclusive. I really wish the base game had sequences like this. It's not exactly like the Scarecrow sequences back in Arkham Asylum, but they're still nice and really trippy. Graphically, Arkham Knight still looks gorgeous. The rain effects, the detail, it's all so good to look at. The mostly smooth frame rate on the PS4 version, and of course the animations are so on point. However, I did switch to the PC version for the challenge mode, and I have to say, this game runs smoothly on PC, though there is one issue I've kind of noticed. I don't know if it's just me, but there's always this long pause when you finish a challenge mode map. The game doesn't crash or anything, it just takes a few seconds for the challenge results screen to actually pop up. It's not a deal breaker or anything, it just seemed like it wasn't intentional. So yeah, the PC version is much better than it was back in the original launch date, so good job, I guess, Rocksteady? Well, I say that the Scarecrow missions are PS4 exclusive, but not anymore. I'll get into that in a minute. Also, I do want to apologize for something that I got wrong back in my Arkham Asylum review. It turns out that with the Return to Arkham remaster, they did add the Joker challenge maps to Xbox, so that's my bad. I didn't know that at the time. Currently, Arkham Knight is usually around $20, but do keep in mind that you'll have to buy the season pass if you want all the DLC, since Arkham Knight hasn't gotten a modern re-release. Well, I say that, but let's get into the Nintendo Switch version. Back in December of 2023, a Nintendo Switch port of the Arkham series minus Arkham Origins was released called Batman Arkham Trilogy. This bundle came with all of the DLC bundled for Arkham Asylum, City, and Knight, and also allowed Switch users to have access to all of the exclusive content for every game. Now, in terms of Arkham Asylum and City, they run fine. It's not perfect, but that could also be because I'm so used to the PC versions, but it's at least passable. Arkham Knight, on the other hand, oh my. I have to commend Turn Me Up Studios for even getting Arkham Knight to run on Switch, but this is the worst way to play Arkham Knight. Low quality graphics, inconsistent frame rates, and more glitches that weren't even in the original game. Yeah, if you're planning on playing the Arkham series, Arkham Trilogy is great for City and Asylum, but not for Knight. I would wait for a price drop so you're not paying full price for 2/3 of the package. Now, I know this might be controversial, but I think Arkham Knight is actually my favorite of the series. I still love City, don't get me wrong, but I think it's a very close race now. Back in 2015, a lot of people were disappointed by this game, and as a result, most people put it down, but replaying it for this review, I have to say, it's my favorite, or at least really close to my favorite in the Arkham series. If you haven't played the Arkham series, I highly recommend it, including Origins. You can find them all on the PC, and yeah, unfortunately, Arkham Origins is the only one that hasn't gotten a modern update, which I do hope comes soon. And that's it! Arkham Knight is a great finale for the Arkham series. It may not be perfect to most people's standards, but I'm still on the fence on saying if it's my favorite of the Arkham series or not, but I don't know yet. Maybe my mind will change when I do the inevitable Let's Play in, I don't know, about a year, knowing me. But, so, here, this is all going to be improv because, I mean, with the end of the Arkham series here, I have really nothing else to say about the Arkham series. Everything I love about the Arkham series has been stated in these reviews, even the things I didn't like. You know, I know that I probably make a lot of Arkham Origins fans upset with what I say about that game, but I really do love this series, and I truly recommend it to anyone who has yet to play it. I mean, if you look behind me, you can see I have multiple copies of every freaking game. I mean, I have the original versions of Arkham Asylum, City, and Origins. I had like 2 copies of both of them. I have the Arkham Trilogy, despite the fact that I hate that version of Arkham Knight because of how it runs on Switch. I have it all of them on the PC. I really love this series, and you know, I can't say much else about it. And I really did enjoy making all these reviews, as sporadic as I did. I really do wish I could have done a bit of a better job with that, but overall, I think the Arkham series is one of my favorite series of games, and if you haven't tried them, I highly recommend it, even if you're not a big Batman fan.
give it a shot. I highly recommend it. Start off with Arkham Asylum if you want to follow the story, but if you don't give a crap, then start off with City. City is great. But that's going to do it for the Arkham series. I have no other games to review. And by the way, if you want to know what that one is doing, that's Penny. She's exploring, I guess. But, you know, if you want more thoughts about the Arkham series as a whole, I mean, I've done all the other reviews so far. The only Arkham games I haven't covered are the Arkham VR games, the Arkham mobile games, and Arkham Origins Blackgate, but I don't intend on doing any of those, not for a while anyway. And then I don't intend on doing a Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League review because I'm good. I don't think I'll be contributing much to that conversation. But the next time we meet in for reviews, okay, now they just switch places. You two are just kind of a dime a minute. I love you guys. Anyway, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, the next time we meet for reviews, I actually do want to get to a game that means a lot to me and my brother. So I hope you guys look forward to that one, and I will mention that its 4th entry is coming out in 2025. They haven't given a definitive release date yet, but I hope you guys look forward to that one. It hopefully doesn't take me too long. I can beat that game in like 6 hours. But I'll see you guys next time for that review. And, you know, if you haven't already, check out the rest of the channel. I do a lot of Let's Plays, and I have done a few other reviews, like the Arkham series, as I mentioned. My personal favorite one is probably... actually, this one. I actually really did like editing this one. But we'll see how everything goes. So the next time we meet, though, I will be covering that one game. I'm pretty sure if my brother's watching this, he already knows where I'm going with that game. And, well, I hope to meet you guys in whatever Let's Play I do next. But until then, see you guys next time, and take care.